Well, I was. Thanks.
Good. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. If everybody would please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first up is a promotion to Sergeant Irving's Department. If Scott Dunleavy can come forward. Now, you know what I need? Oath of office. Right. Bear with me for a second. Actually, do I need to do the resolution first, or can I? Perhaps I should do that first. Sorry for the false alarm. You're getting closer now. You're getting warm. All right, let me make a motion. Resolve to appoint Scott Dunleavy to the contingent permanent position of police sergeant at an annual salary of $159,400, effective November 3rd, 2025, subject to a probationary period not less than 12 weeks and not more than 52 weeks. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we can do this. Please raise your right hand. I, Scott Dunleavy,
I, Scott Dunleavy,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties, the office of Sergeant,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of Sergeant
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Jack.
The important people, they have to get in the picture. We're all Jack. Do some upstairs. Somebody's enjoying it almost as much as.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
I will.
You can all go.
Yes.
You can all go, don't worry.
Yeah, we will not be offended.
I know.
We'll celebrate.
Yeah, you won't take, you can take all yours.
Thank you.
Charles, for the next mayor, you're gonna wanna make sure you're always carrying the oath of office. I just happen to have it.
Just get a tattoo.
Right.
You really are devoted.
Yeah.
Hey. Don't know how my mother would feel about that. Okay. Next up is, yeah, although, yes, correct, our Oktoberfest final report. Let's come up.
You wanna, oh,
Yeah, we gotta give you a mic, so I suppose we could also pull the table forward, but
usually there's space at the table, that's why.
Do you
It's
want?
not laid out that way today, so.
you wanna sit? Or-
Yeah, sit over
No,
here.
let Jared
You
sit.
can use- And then you
Yeah.
can use this.
Yeah, that's a great idea, sit next to
Yeah,
me.
it's okay. For somebody who did all the work that you did, the least we can do is give
Give
you
me
a
a seat.
chair. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I understand. I stood for 12 hours. I'm now having knee replacement surgery.
Ooh.
Charge the village. I stood for
Because-
12 hours.
Oktoberfest, Jared?
No. No. It was scheduled before. Thanks for having me. So I just have a couple of really quick notes, and thank you to Katie for helping me prepare these final financial figures. We had, I think everyone knows, a really successful day, for which I don't really take the credit. It's all about the weather. We had a good day of weather, and if we have a good day of weather, we have a good Oktoberfest. So it's pretty much an established model. There's certainly some things that we've done in these last 2 years, and that we hopefully will do going forward to change things slightly. But really, it is what it is, and when the weather cooperates, we get a good turnout. So our revenues were in the neighborhood of $68,000, which was a really good number. 23 of that was sponsors, which was also a really good number for us. We actually had a few dropouts, so we found about 6,000 or 7,000 incremental from last year. Our alcohol sales were up a little bit. That's partially because we raised our alcohol prices actually a little bit. Historically, beer was $8 and everything else was $6. One of the things we did this year was that everything was $8, which was not only to make more money, but to simplify everything. So we only had to sell, one piece of paper, and you could use it to buy anything. So that probably helped the alcohol numbers. And we look at the way things sold, so we know for next year, we're going to order less red wine or probably Surfside as an example. So it was all good though. Our total expenses were a little bit over $50,000, so we profited about 17. Katie can confirm that should put the balance in that
Yes.
account above 50,000 now.
Yeah, we're at 55,574 to be exact.
That's fantastic. Let me just one observation about that, just because you would ask questions historically, as have lots of other people. 35 of it stays there no matter what to be used for future Oktoberfest. It's sort of the backup fund, the seed fund. Anything over that can be used for the theater. Not the theater, the new stage, and for related programming, if you will.
Right. Well, I was going to go to that next.
Oh,
And again, I didn't have answers last year
I'm not
either.
trying to jump
You guys
ahead
will
of you.
probably remember I didn't have
Forgive
answers
me.
last year either. I don't really have answers yet this year, but I'll reaffirm the question, which is, what is the money for? And when I go through it, when I go out across and I try to raise money from the sponsors, as I said last year, so now I'm really only here to do Oktoberfest. That's why I stepped forward. But it's been made clear to me, as you just alluded to, people are going to ask if you are raising money, if you're profiting, which we are on a good year, then we're creating funds, 55,000 now sitting in the bank. And so people are going to justifiably ask, well, what's that for? And I've kind of said all along, I don't really have a good answer for that. It's not why I stepped forward. But I would agree with those people who have brought it to my attention over the past 12 months that it's a question, I guess, that we have to address. And if it's a question that Maureen's answers or you guys answer or the theater or the new stage, I don't have a firm answer, but I do, I guess, believe we need
I'll
to
tell
come
you
up
what
with
litigators would say, asked and answered. The board itself, and I don't know if everybody on the board now, but certainly a board saw a policy that was put forward and without objection understood that because we all anticipated this would make money at some point, as it has, the excess over 35,000 rolling forward is available for the new stage, which Charles is going to report on later in terms of when it's going to be finished. You'll definitely have it for next year, I guarantee that. Even though I won't be here to personally guarantee it, but it is moving forward. The programming there, and I believe we also discussed related programming for library and theater and whatnot. So it should be used in a sense for the same purposes that raised the money, which is to promote music and performances in the village of Irvington, primarily that stage, but for other related purposes. That is the intention, and that is what the board. It is entirely possible that a future board says, no, we'd like to use it differently. But at that point, you can rethink whether you want to be helping raise the money. But I don't think that's going to happen.
I think
Yeah.
just, and I'm curious to know what you hear from people, because
like on the Bulldog Gallery, people tell us all the time, all kinds of things they think we should do with the money that we raise.
Yeah.
And we similarly went through sort of like initially when it started, it was like, okay, we're gonna use the money for beautification or to do things on Main Street, and then we quickly realized like we're gonna use the money to promote arts in Irvington because and similarly we have to keep like the seed money because it costs money to start the program, and then you get to a certain point and you have so. I guess my question to you is because I think people have this history of what the Oktoberfest money was used for, and so maybe this is a good time to sort of say like it was used in a certain way before, and maybe it's going to be used differently, or if people right. So I'm just curious to know what you hear about that.
Well,
And
yeah,
what you're,
I mean, yeah, Arlene, that's sort of the issue here is that,
Yeah.
you know, the committee that I now head, which is not a committee anymore, was created because there was a point in time when the feeling was that there were, you know, budget cuts being made and shortage of funds for the rec department. Famously, everyone brings up the fireworks. There's truth to that, although I don't think that's the sum total of what was going on. But the concept was a bunch of Irvington village residents who felt we should raise money amongst ourselves, come up with ways to raise money. If any of you remember, they did the penguin plunge for a couple of years in the river in order to augment the rec department's budget so that they could afford to do things that might otherwise not happen. And I don't know all the details. I know Joe made use of those funds in various ways. But 15 years later, we're not in the same place. Our fireworks are, so far as I know, not in danger. There are programs. Look, some people say, why don't we keep doing the holiday meals? Do we not do them anymore because Maureen doesn't do them? Do we not do them anymore because there isn't funding? I mean, I don't know why.
So let me answer a couple of
But
those
that's
questions.
one of the things people say to me.
Yeah.
First,
like that's what I hear. Why don't we do a holiday meal?
First, the theater, what I just described about how the excess funds would be used is entirely consistent with giving the money to rec. Why? That theater, the theater in the park is in the park. Rec runs that theater, so the money is going to programming. Sorry, your second point was holiday meals, which is not on point to this, but I was asked that question recently, and the short answer to that is we're not doing it because there weren't enough eligible people to do it, and the school wasn't prepared to share the names of people who are in need. That is why we are not doing it. You can speak to Maureen if you'd like to do that, but that was not the kind of thing that needs to be publicly announced, except I'm doing it now so that it'll stop everybody who's been commenting like that to you. Because
It's one thing that gets raised.
Yeah.
I
It's-
know,
it's-
all the time, but it does get raised.
The other thing, because we talked a lot about that, I would say probably when we first came on the board, that was sort of when we were learning about Rocktoberfest. And again, I think it was even shifting then, right? Because the idea that Rocktoberfest paid for the fireworks is like really like
That's ancient history.
it's sort of ancient history, correct? But I do think that the thing that we struggled with at the time when there were still some of this, like some of the programming of like baskets during the holidays, it's sort of difficult because the village is not a social services organization, not really set up for that. Like, how do you actually know people? One of the ways is the school, but like the school wasn't that comfortable with doing that. So I think it was done in a very ad hoc way. But like once we're raising a lot of money, do we feel comfortable doing that?
Right.
What are the what's in place to make sure that we're like, counting for that, right? Which we have to do because it's state, we have state rules. So I think it became very difficult to do something that was maybe not like was done sort of in a kind of with good intention, but we have rules that we couldn't follow well, and so that became tough to do once you.
It's
so
just
we have
been
to find
it's just an issue
different
for me
ways.
as Francis, and I'll let you know again and say what as Francis brought up last year. The only really reason it's an issue for me, frankly, is that I raised $23,000 from sponsors, and there's one person in particular in this town who continues to support us very generously. I had a long chat with him this year, and he goes back to the early days of this. And he was actually ready to give me more money this year, and I knew that he was giving me more money, and he didn't really have a good understanding of what we're discussing right here. So I said, "Can we get on the phone?" And I explained to him where we used to be and where we are now. And I said, "Just give me what we're good." Like I don't want your more money because I can't really tell you why I'm taking it. And
That's fair.
so that's the only reason it's a concern for me, because when I ask people for money, I have to say why I'm asking.
So,
Yeah.
And the answer that I use is that your sponsor money allows us to do Oktoberfest without any fear of losing money. If we have to cancel because a hurricane blows through, sponsors by and large will allow us to come. We probably lose a little bit of money, but we'll come pretty close to breaking even with the sponsors. And that's my answer. My answer is you're assuring us that we can do this great event, and and that's why. And so you're supporting the town, and that's also why I've tried to play up the exposure that our sponsors get, because I realize that I don't have the same pitch that I used to have. So I try to give them more value in exchange, more signage, the big sign over the stage this year, the sign over the hospitality tent, the folks at the bank. Ed, who's the head of the bank, has already said they're planning to return next year. So that's great. So I'm trying to play up the value they get, because I can't play up the story of why we need these funds.
Sure, let
because
me
our
help you
budget
with the
is-
story then, okay? Like, so we have this new stage coming, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna make who knows, like, this may be a terrible idea, but just give me an example of the kind of thing. So we have this great new stage, but of course, we can't do a Oktoberfest every single week, that's not practical, right? But for example, Briarcliff, I don't know if they still did it this past summer, but I know the summer before that, and they've done it previously for years, I think going back to before COVID. They have a park right in the middle of the village, and every Friday night, they have a band come in, 2 food trucks or 3 food trucks, and 1 beer truck. And there's no admission fee. You bring a blanket, you hang out, whatever, right? Obviously, I don't think they break even on the food truck to pay the band, right? Probably not. And I think the village is supporting that. Well, if we have this new stage, we don't want it to sit empty the whole year, but we can't have an event like Oktoberfest that makes money because people aren't going to come
Right.
that much. But if we can
And you're
say-
not gonna do it every once.
No, but-
The weekly
I'll tell you,
Oktoberfest.
Mitch, the conversation with that Irvington resident, he said, Jared, next year you and I are going to sit in a blanket and listen to a jazz concert at Matheson Park.
Good.
So we've talked
Yeah.
about that,
Absolutely.
but again, and that's fine. There's no buts other than, do we have a group that's going to do that? Are you looking at me? Like, who's
No,
doing that?
no.
Right? And I'm sorry, I
That's
should make it
more-
sound like I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But we don't have, I can't even say to a sponsor, well, we have a group, and now that we have a stage, we're going to start planning,
We do.
yes.
We have a theater
Okay.
that can book things. We have a rec department that can book things.
Okay.
And when you have such a small event, when I said it was 2 food trucks and a beer truck
Yeah.
and a band, it's
Much
not.
easier. Oh,
It's
yeah.
not the same level of volunteers
Yep.
and like.
Yep.
I'm not saying it's no work,
Right. No.
but
But
it's
yeah.
So I think that's
Tarrytown does
something-
it every Thursday. at
There we
Pierce
go.
Park.
So
Yep.
that's
Not only
something-
that, some of us are in bands that would pay to play.
Hey.
Well, maybe not Mitch, but I would.
I've got notes on all that as well. But we
You're
won't
gonna get
discuss
us
that
and
here.
you told because he's friends with one of my bandmates.
Oh, all right.
I watched all of you on Friday
So yeah,
and
so
others.
so I think that would be the kind of thing. Yeah, we could have a jazz band come in,
Yeah.
and again,
Yeah.
it's like having the funds available to be able to pay the jazz band
Absolutely.
and pay the extra, personnel we need to be in the park.
And that's in the email/letters that I did send out to the prospective sponsors this year. I allude, without firmly saying that, I said we have a permanent stage being built. Our intention is to have more performances at that park with that stage. So it sort of alluded to the fact that that's what these funds would be.
One
about.
way to make it more concrete for your sponsors, speaking for the next mayor and the next board, is when you do the budgeting process, there's no reason you couldn't budget money from the trusted agency account for, we want a concert series for
Yeah.
such and such. You say that to a rec department
Right.
or the theater
Right.
and say, and here's how much is available in the trust and agency account because it's in excess of what Oktoberfest requires. Go do your thing.
And yeah, and then I go up to these sponsors and I put a sign that'll say up all summer.
Yeah.
So now you're sponsoring that stage.
Right, because that goes both ways. Then it helps you sell, and it also gives them a
Right.
reason. So it works twice. Yeah.
So that's the financials. Only a couple other things. First of all, Francis is not going to be the co-chair anymore. I'm going to be the chairman. Francis is very much still on my on the committee, as is Stacy, who's great. In terms of looking forward, I already have 2 pages of notes of things that we already want to address for next year. I will not bore you with them, but just know that We do immediate follow up. I literally have 2 pages, things about, I joked with Mary the other day, everything from where the porta johns are and, to what beers we order. It's, everything's discussed. So we have some things that we think need to be made better. For the most part, there are things that most attendees didn't even notice, but we noticed. So we've got a bunch of them. I guess a couple of things I would just mention here. If there's any input or any help I can get, we'd love to get 1 or 2 additional people on the committee. It was, to be honest, not looking for thank you or pats on the back. I did a huge amount of work this summer, like hundreds of hours, literally. And I could use some help, not broadly, but I'd love to, for instance, be able to say to someone, do the wine and beer. Like, do all the research, talk to all the vendors, which we ended up dealing with like 3 different vendors, and then come to me in August and we'll make some quick decisions. But instead, I'm on the phone with Judy. I'm sending emails to Rachel. I'm going to Manhattan Beer, So eventually, like every little thing I'm doing, I'd just like to find a couple. So anyone knows anyone, or maybe in an upcoming, mayor's email, we could just put out a feeler for someone to join our group and
I think that's
lend a
helpful too, because when people want to help, sometimes if it's vague,
Right.
it's hard to recruit people.
Right. No, I would look.
If you
There's
have
a couple of
specific
very
acts,
specific
Actually,
things.
that's great. If
We
if
want
you-
someone to oversee, like this. One of the things that we don't think really went smoothly was the scheduling of our volunteers. As we talked about during the course of the day, I want someone who's sort of better with spreadsheets and scheduling than Francis is. He's good at
maybe if you email me a couple of, like, here's the 5
Right.
categories
Okay.
I'm looking for, I can work that in.
Right.
I think people are more likely to get involved when they're like, oh, I could see myself
Yeah.
doing that.
Excellent.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. The other things for next year, just sort of, just with the new stage, the entire park's layout changes. We already have a situation where the distance from the gate to the stage is almost 200 yards. A lot of people talk about, it's a musical event. It really isn't a musical event. It's a park event with music, or I should say it's a village event with music. So I'm scheduling up, this year with the stage 2, which we thought was a huge hit. We have a lot of new issues. Stage 2 has to be bigger. We have to plan it with a little bit more time involved. But so we're doing, 8 hours of live music, and this year it really was, because when we weren't on the main stage, we were on the second stage. But then we have, bouncy houses here, and apple presses here, and pumpkin painting there, and 12 food vendors. So it's a pretty complicated event because there's a lot of points of contact. The stage moving will change a lot. We believe that we probably have to move everything up from the gate. Like the bouncy houses will have to come closer. We don't want it more spread out. So we'll have issues next year that we'll have to address, which we will address, but it will definitely change. Location of food trucks, location of tents, all that will have to be sort of redesigned within the park. The one issue that has come up, just so that you guys mention it, because I know Charlotte is a town employee, it is constantly a challenge to figure out how to deal with waste in the park. I think it was better this year than last year. I'm determined to make it better next year than this year. By a wide margin, the most common issue that was brought back to us was garbage. And I sent an email out to 100 people that ranged from attendees to musicians to the police chief to Todd Smith, everyone. And by a wide margin, people complained about the way we gathered garbage. So that's going to have to be, once again, refigured next year. It's a big, spread out event with thousands of people. And, the green team wants to come in, and I shouldn't even put that. I want them there. I think it's great that they're there. I've always had an approach, here to try to get as many people in town involved as possible. I love their involvement, but we need many more points of garbage disposal than we have. And the reason that we have limited is because they want their spots, but a park that size needs a dozen garbage locations, not 3. And so if you have a dozen, then can you have enough volunteers to man a dozen? And then it becomes a little bit.
And also though, and maybe, I don't remember when they were involved this year, but also just working with the vendors on the compostable piece, right? 'Cause I know
That was
there
a
was
big,
a lot of success, but I know that one of the vendors,
two of the,
two didn't.
two of our
Okay,
big vendors.
who said they were, and then
Correct.
they didn't.
So I don't know what we can do about that. I mean, we certainly this time, we didn't, it wasn't last minute. I mean, I started communicating with them in May and June.
Why do you think they didn't? Because they said, I know one of them at least. said
You'd
they
really have to ask Charlotte. I mean, she
Okay.
told me
Yeah.
because I saw
They
her at the
said they
park
did,
and she
yeah.
showed me.
Oh, okay.
She goes, look, this is not composed. They said it was composable. This is not composable.
Right.
Why? Charlotte said to me, she just assumes they don't know. They don't really understand what we're asking.
Right.
And so they think they're being compliant. And then they get to the park and Charlotte looks at the stuff. And it's like, and even I could tell, it's like wax coated.
Right.
Can't.
'Cause it makes it like, because if it's all compostable, then it's easier, right? 'Cause
Correct.
no, it doesn't have to be sorted at all. It's
Right.
like-
But here's the other issue. That's 100%.
Yeah.
The challenge and the challenge we've had with Lisa is we don't mandate. And to be frank, we won't mandate because we struggle to get enough vendors down there. So for instance, the lobster people, their packaging was not compostable. Okay. And I'm sorry that it's not compostable. But I will not say to the lobster people, you can't come next year because your packaging is not compostable. Because I don't have another lobster person to replace that with. Or another empanada. I mean, well, I don't know. But one of the challenges that I see, for instance, the proposal they put up recently where every gathering more than 50 people should be mandated. Here's the problem. If Rocktoberfest was only, like you're talking about having an event with 2 vendors. If I only need 2 vendors, I'll find 2 that are 100% compostable. But I need 12 vendors. Okay. And I get as many no's as I get yeses because these trucks are fairly in demand, particularly in the fall. Walter's Hot Dogs has said no to me twice, and I've given them a year's notice, and they still say no. So I'm not going to say no to a vendor who's willing to be here because their box has wax on it. Because I have too many people and a park that's too big, and I need more food vendors, not less. So if I'm doing an event with only a few hundred people and I can get away with 1 or 2 vendors, then I can afford to, maybe mandate and be more strict. But when we wanted 2 or 3 more than we got. We had 2 that canceled the week of. We want more vendors and we can't find them. And so I'm not going to say to someone who's prepared to be there, well, thanks, but unless your boxes are compostable, you can't come. I'm not willing to take that position. I know the rec department agrees with me. We don't. It's not like we have people coming to us. We're looking for vendors and we're not finding them. And so we don't feel that we are in a position to mandate. And that's the word, by the way.
This may not be practical, but I'm looking for like a solution. Like, what if we provided them with their stuff?
I'm prepared to explore that. I mean, you probably need to bring Charlotte in and figure out, can we do that and let her communicate with these.
What we know to be.
Yeah.
So I think even when you do that, maybe, I think this is a good.
Because it'll help
I
Laura.
mean, just so you know,
I'm trying.
we spent, this is another issue. As it is, we spent about $1,000 this year out of that $51,000. We spent about $1,000 this year because we attempted to be zero waste, right? We spent $600 on beer cups that we could have gotten for free, but we spent $600 to make them compostable. And we paid DPW overtime because our DPW department does not, in its basic day-to-day responsibility, have the management of compost waste as their responsibility. So we paid them a little overtime. So Todd's guys help Charlotte's team on that day. So we invest a little bit to get there. So if nothing else, even if Charlotte could deliver the necessary boats and wraps and whatever these people need, I'm guessing you're talking about thousands of dollars more of an investment on our part.
Well, it could be on our part though.
That's what I mean. Yes, on the village's part. I'm not identifying where. Yeah, there would be an investment need to do that.
Yeah.
If Charlotte wants to take that on and talk to these vendors,
I think we should.
I'm just looking for a solution.
No, and I think that's actually a pretty good suggestion. Actually, I think it's good. But I think I know that you talked to Charlotte, and I'm sure Charlotte, as the sustainability director, is going to be interested in exploring that. But I think what's important is that there's buy-in to the concept, And obviously, we can understand your limitation with bringing vendors, so finding solutions, like maybe providing for the ones that don't do it. Because for a lot of the people, it's like, it's a sense difference, and they're willing to do it. Like, we've had a vendor, and it's true, right? We were dealing with one vendor for Juneteenth, and she was a barbecue place, and she actually did notice that was something she thought was compostable, wasn't, and switched it and got something else. But she said to us, like, let me check with my supplier. So a little bit of, I think, depending on how, knowledgeable the vendor is too, is part of it. But then maybe we could provide some of that knowledge and
Yeah, I mean,
access to vendors.
right, and I'm
Yeah.
sure, I'm sure Charlotte could
Yeah.
provide that. I mean, I don't know it all, but she
Yeah.
seems to be on top
Yeah,
of
I
it.
mean, that whole.
I mean, the one
that's even
thing-
people do know.
My one sense of that whole effort is this: when we met at the park shortly before, they were all there. Lisa, who was not there on Saturday, was there, and their approach was, "We just want to show people that it's easy. Like, we just want to be there and demonstrate." And I'm all in, like 100%. Great. The problem, frankly, is that while they put it that way, their real goal is this 90% number, right? Because if 90% of the waste generated goes somewhere other than the landfill, meaning compostable, recyclable, or the liquids, then they can call it a zero waste event. And you may know better than I what they can issue reports and headline zero waste event. And so what happens is they want to just be there and educate people and make it possible and collect as much compost as they can. But once they get past that initial sort of, friendly, that 90% is clearly hard. Like, they are desperate to get to that 90%. And that pushes them to a point where they want to control more than they should control. Because then we don't have enough, because they're so determined to get to that 90%, they don't want, the beer tent says, "Jared, I need garbage." The guys at the stage, "Jared, I need garbage," right? We have a VIP tent where people are eating food. Jared, there needs to be a garbage there. People are eating food, right? And those are all places that we need garbage. But we don't have 8 or 10, waste stations.
So it sounds like it's got to be more of an offline meeting and
Yeah.
members of the
Yeah.
board can
Yeah.
show up.
I'm getting right.
but-
I just
Well,
that's
probably
it's just an
ties-
issue.
You
it
make
probably
a fair
ties into
point.
more volunteers.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes,
right?
exactly right.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
You might have
those-
like a
correct. But
green
right, those are day of
captain.
volunteers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
As opposed to the committee volunteers.
Like,
Those
no,
are
I
day
need
of.
some bodies to do some work over the course of the year.
Yeah.
I get you.
The green team is a lot of members. So
Yeah,
They
yeah.
just need to be told that if this is what they want,
Right.
this
He's
is what
talking,
it
he's talking
takes.
about something. He's talking about he's talking about the people who will organize the alcohol.
No,
do
but
some
we're
of
No,
the-
no,
talking
but
about-
for
we're-
this-
Oh,
we're
right.
saying
The
that
volunteers in the park
if
is
you want to
they're-
have 10 garbage stations.
Right, you got to have the
We need,
people to manage
let me
it.
rephrase that.
Right.
We need to have 10 garbage stations for this to work.
right.
So if you can have people at 10 different garbage stations, that's wonderful.
Correct.
Right.
That's basically.
Got
And,
it.
I mean, I think Charlotte had 30 people there. I think.
Yes,
The number. She probably would have to double that.
Yeah.
Right. To really man all the places that we have garbage.
Yeah, and it's a long day.
Right. And it's a long day. And by the way,
Probably
I think
hours.
her report says they reached 77%. I remember two or 3 days before the park, before the event, I said to Lisa, "I'm guessing that if we fill your 6 toters and we create 6 toters worth of compostable, regardless of what percentage that is, you're going to be really happy." And she looked at me and she's like, "High five." Right? So she gets like, yes, that would be great. If we filled 6 toters worth
Yeah.
of compost, that's great. And those 6 toters still only get them to 77%. That's where you start,
Got
it
it.
seems to me, having some push pull between what they want to get and then what they really want to get and how we manage it.
This seems like more discussion and
Yes.
maybe figuring out how
But regardless, you have brought this an incredibly long way
Yes.
over the last 2 years.
Good
So thank you.
Really
No,
good.
it's not- I
Yeah.
hate when you say that. No, it was you have done so much, and we really, really appreciate it.
No, I mean, it's a lot of work, like I said, a couple of extra volunteers. And then at this point, I kind of get it. I know what needs to be done, so just a few extra- and they're not here, but believe me, this is a rec event. And, Maureen and Mike and Angela and Laura and their team, by the way, down at the park,
Yeah.
guys that run those gators for 12 hours. It's their event. All right.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Good luck with the knee.
Yes, I'm having knee replacement surgery in 2 weeks.
All right, our traffic calming committee. Should we try to set this up the same way so they can be on a mic or not have to stand, or do you want to stand?
We can sit here.
Just take
Mary Ann, go ahead. Okay to sit?
Why not?
Used to make people stand.
It's not a filibuster. You can say.
Stuff everywhere.
So thank you for including us tonight. I'm Walter Montgomery, and this is Haley Schultz, who is a member of the Irvington Committee, which was originally Mary Beth Dooley and Mark Gilliland, myself, Alice McCone, Barry Goley. Now it's Alice McCone, Barry Goley, myself, Haley Schultz, and Dr. Fesco Miloshev. And we're here tonight, briefly, as promised, to basically say that we want to become more active again. We were, as we were in the past, but for the last few years, we have not been particularly active. We've done some things in coordination with Larry and with the chief and Scott Dunley. And Scott is one of the achievements of coincidentally, of the traffic calming committee, because we urged that there be a full-time dedicated enforcement officer, and Larry and Chief Pignatelli made that happen. And there were some other things that were accomplished in the early years of this committee, and including the collection of data on speeding through the radars, and some new crosswalks and markings and so forth. So we were very active. We've been less active in the last few years. To some degree, COVID was a benchmark or a threshold in that activity, but we have done other things in recent times, meeting mainly with residents who have particular issues, and the chief says that we play a useful role as intermediaries with residents who may have particular traffic issues. Anyway, our goal is to promote traffic and pedestrian safety. We do not have traffic expertise, we know that. We do not have any power, we know that. We've always operated with those two realities in mind. But we would like to become more active, and we have some specific thoughts about that. The catalyst for that desire is the rising, as we see it, tide of concern on South Broadway about safety issues around Ardsley Avenue West and Ardsley Avenue East, that general area, not just Broadway per se. And the, in my book anyway, and I think in the books of others, the increasing concern about what the Barma development will mean on Broadway. We are not taking a position on the development, but of course we are concerned about the intensity of the traffic flow. So those are the most immediate catalysts, most immediate reasons for saying we want to become more active on traffic and pedestrian safety issues. So having said that, I would like Haley just to elaborate again briefly on the issues.
Sure. So there are the two focal points that I think, aside from the day-to-day questions and comments and considerations from community members that we hear about, two will have a broader impact into the other river towns. As you mentioned, one is South Broadway around the Ardsley East and West.
I'm sorry, could you speak into the microphone just so we can
I'm
get it
sorry,
all
I'm
recorded?
hogging the microphone.
Walter. So we have, we've been hearing growing concerns from the community members in that area, particularly families with school children or people who commute to the trains, that it's kind of a, you know, like Frogger across Broadway with 4 lanes of traffic and the speeds, the challenging visibilities of cross sections. There are no crosswalks. So Dr. Miloshev has undertaken a deep dive into some possible options. He's created a plan. We're still discussing, you know, how we would like to see that as a committee, what we would propose. But coming soon, you can expect from us that we'll have some sort of wish list plan, and we would be looking for some expert consideration as we work through that, because again, we are not experts. To have somebody who does know what they're looking at and could very readily say, yeah, it's a nice idea, but if you shift it this way, it's better positioning.
I'm sure you know that the state road. So whatever you recommend, we're gonna have to somehow bring the state into this process.
That is part of our consideration. That's paragraph 3.
Got
Go
it.
ahead.
Sorry.
Okay.
I have a habit of doing that. Walter knows me well.
The next part is, as Walter mentioned, North Broadway with Varma, we don't take a position. However, we do think we are uniquely positioned as a touchstone in the community to voice concerns for people that navigate that stretch every single day. We also have pedestrian crossing issues. We have visibility issues. It's the mirror image of the South Broadway challenge. I know Varma is looking at, working through some of those challenges with the IPB and the state. But to have local residents involved in that and to reach out and have, buy-in from the community, it's going to be a little more personal than just looking up against a corporation. And so to that point, we are aware that the state is working on a Route 9 redesign. However, it hasn't been approved. It hasn't been funded. It's going to be an uphill battle. And so we are taking the position that things need to be done as much as possible and as soon as possible to resolve our community's ability to navigate safely around Broadway. And that may mean that things are overwritten if the state passes the plan the way it is. But also if we can get out ahead of it a little bit, then maybe we've made our needs known or we've done a trial run to see how some of these aspects work. That's our position. And we look forward to working with all of, it's a cross-functional team, right? It's our committee, Mr. Hessler, who is seeing what he's getting into, Chief Pignatelli, Officer Dunleavy, who's been great, the Board of Trustees, and especially Mr. Kleiman, who was a guest at our last committee meeting. It was great, and it's nice to have that linkage now. And then also Planning Board and elected officials outside of Irvington. We realize it's going to take a lot of people to resolve some of these issues.
And we know DOT, of course, is one of those realities that we have to deal with. My own sense with my somewhat historical perspective at my age here, and almost 40 years of Irvington, is that we could probably do more to put some pressure consistently on DOT to do things that are absolutely necessary for pedestrian and traffic safety on Broadway in particular. That maybe we could be just a bit more active in that particular realm, recognizing that they have ultimate authority.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. If we are deploying our state legislators and writing letters at the same time to DOT, you may be able to get some, useful results out of this. I just want to make one practical point because we received a letter recently from a biker, and I have to use Broadway as well. They were suggesting signage that could go on the roadway that might indicate to drivers that the road is shared by bikers. We know we can't create a bike lane at this stage. That might be something for you to think about it as you are making recommendations. We haven't looked at the legality of whether we can actually, compel anybody to do that. And a letter only came in a few days ago, but I can certainly relate to having drivers pin me against the curb and then yell at me because I shouldn't be on Broadway.
We have taken initiatives in the past. I know the radar signs that are on Broadway represent initiative.
Yeah.
It didn't have necessarily all the steps behind
Right.
it, right? So,
Right.
But in any event, we don't want to do that very much, but we perhaps will put more pressure on them to achieve what needs to be achieved. So we all, in sum, we really have 3 requests. One is that we continue to have support from the BOT for our having an active role on issues, more active than has been in the last few years. You may not like our recommendations at times. We don't assume that you will. But
I've been very appreciative when you folks step into the breach because there's often.
We just simply appreciate having support for our having an active role.
Yeah.
Which doesn't necessarily mean then endorsing what that role results in, because we respect your ultimate authority too. The second thing is, and I was on the IPB also for some considerable number of years. Not my favorite experience, but it was useful. We would like to engage with Caesar, who I think is terrific, and the IPB, the Varma issue. Again, not supporting or opposing Varma, but on traffic-related issues. We've already had extensive data analyses. Okay, and what's been missing in my book anyway in the overall equation is a close examination of everyday realities, practical realities of the traffic issues there. So we'd like to be able to at least have some role with Caesar now. And B, with your permission, I would approach Caesar, who I've known for some time, just to raise that possibility. We don't want to get in the way. We will not be intrusive, but just to have some kind of role in that debate. And the third request is that we be allowed, as we did in the past, to meet with the village's traffic engineer when we need to consider the consequences and the key issues of anything we're thinking about, because again, we're not technical engineers. Things we've done in the past we think have been helpful. They did not involve in technical expertise. So we'd like to be able to meet with that individual. We would keep the meetings very selective and very brief and thus relatively inexpensive, we would hope. So those are the three requests that we have. We just happen to feel it's time for some real action, but more aggressive action on some of these issues, especially related to Broadway. And,
Understood.
Thank you for listening to us.
Before you go, and I'll certainly let anybody else comment if they want to. My only question is about your second request, which is sort of approaching the planning board. I'm looking at Mary Ann behind you. Is there any issue with having one village committee kind of? I mean, presumably they could write a letter or they could speak to.
The only thing is that they've been working on the traffic for about a year now,
Yeah.
and they're getting kind of to the end of that. And be aware of that. I mean, you
Yeah,
know,
I mean,
it's-
but presumably they're like any other resident of this village who could say, I like that, I don't like that, or whatever it is. So I I just didn't,
Oh, yeah.
I didn't want to run into some sort of ex parte communication issue that, I mean,
No, I just
Okay.
pointing out that it's actually very late in the traffic.
Got it. okay.
It is, and of course, Mary Ann is right. As our thought was simply that at this stage, anyway, it appears after all the data analysis and so forth, that Varma is trying to do more to figure out what they can do with the DOT to meet some of the issues that are involved here. So since they're doing that, we thought maybe we could be more involved with monitoring and offering criticisms and suggestions related to that kind of work in particular. We are not qualified to offer more data. By the
Understood.
way, have been offered almost ad nauseum in my layperson's perspective. That's the context in which we would like to weigh in and not being intrusive. And maybe it is just writing a letter. Who knows? But I don't want to blindside anybody who are suddenly opining to the IPB, whose authority I understand quite well, I think. Anyway, those are our requests. We thank you.
Before you go, it sounded like other people might have comments to make, so.
I have a quick question. Just on point 3, the village doesn't have a traffic consultant or retainer. So from time to time, we have voted to engage in a traffic study, and we paid a company to do that. I think the last time we did that was about 2 or 3 years. I don't think you were the mayor. I think it's probably 3 years.
Oh, no, I was
Well,
there
they're
for
also-
8. What is
It's
it?
AKRF.
You were for that?
Yeah.
Okay, so then,
Take KRF, but they're also the village's traffic consultant on the farmland.
on the farm application. Yes, but that's
They were
not what
hired-
Walter was
They were
saying.
hired before, but we.
So, right, but he is saying, what I'm just, yes, but what I'm saying is, what they're asking for us to meet as if we have this, like, underlying, there's no contract in place to make that happen. So
But from a practical perspective, I guess if you had something you wanted to run by someone, you could say, write an email to Charles and say, can we, and we figure it
I
out.
just wanted to make that clear that we don't, it's not like the engineer, that we have a contract with the engineer, and if we agree, you can engage them and they would build the village. There's nothing like that with traffic. I understand they're working on this one case, and we have also engaged them from time to time. But if you wanted a general meeting with the traffic consultant, that would have to be a new contract, and we'd have to approve it and everything like that. Right, Mary Ann? Yeah.
Right.
So that, it's just the way the request was phrased.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. It's not as simple as that, I'm saying. Whereas if it was like the engineer, it'd be like, oh, I totally get what you mean.
That was kind of my question too, a little bit, like we would have to know what the scope is, right? So that, and then I think you could work with Charles on that. My other question was, do you have any plans to just like survey? I've been getting a lot of traffic safety, questions from people. To survey sort of like the village in general to figure out what the community feels like the issues are outside of just the two things that were, that you mentioned.
No, doesn't mean we shouldn't.
We've discussed it though. We have
We
discussed
it,
tabling
yes.
at the farmer's market, pushing in and being a little more of a presence in a
You'll
visibly
find a lot of
accessible
interest
way.
in people that wanna talk to you.
I'm sure we would be exhausted, but we have discussed it in that a very high level as we've discussed our plans.
Yeah, I'm
Sorry
thinking
to
of a
talk
more,
over you,
no, I'm
Walter,
thinking of a more official, scientific survey. In the past, we have solicited comments and suggestions from people, and got a lot of them actually. So we certainly could, again, we could do a survey. That would involve some cost, but it could be very worthwhile.
If you wanted to do something informally, if you do it in the next month or so, I could put out in a mayor's letter, a paragraph that says the traffic committee is seeking, comments on you, concerns you may have with regard to traffic in the village. I mean, you'll tell me how you
That
want
will
me to
help.
phrase it,
Yes.
but tell me what you want and I can do that at least in November. December 1, I become powerless, so,
Well, thank you. We're gonna follow up on that.
Okay, yeah, because related to what Arlene was saying, I'm wondering, how do you interact with community members now? How do they find you? How do they know?
But most recently, last couple of years in particular, most of the interaction has come as a result of the chief sending us a letter from someone who was concerned about whatever. There was an issue at River House earlier this year, for example. We set up a meeting with the resident there who was concerned about that. I think he's head of the condo board there. And a meeting with him and with Scott and with Chief Pignatelli. And the issues were resolved. And we did the same thing with some folks on Hamilton. They didn't get what they wanted entirely, but they got some of what they wanted. I'm not saying that we were critical to that. I think we played a role. That's all. In each of those cases. Larry would send a letter he got of complaint about a traffic issue. That's been those have been the main ways in which that's been the main way in which we have dealt with residents.
We also do have an email address that is monitored. Alice monitors the email, and when a subject comes through, she brings it to the committee, and we discuss, how best, maybe we've liaised people up on Hamilton near the reservoir with the busing company to make sure that they could get the right bus stops in the right places. So it's those sorts of, we do get direct contact often. They tend to be discrete concerns then, for more systemic concerns that we've seen them come through.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question, is how many contacts or how often are you?
Not often.
Not
often?
No.
Okay,
You know,
We're
maybe
hoping to
that's-
grow
A
that.
few
Yeah.
during the year, and if John puts out this email, we'll get more.
You'll get more than what you asked for.
That's
Um, Yeah, my other question was, you made reference to, you do collect data, I guess, along with like IPG, right?
The police department collects data on speeding, or speeds of traffic through the radar signs, some of the radar signs.
Okay.
And that's something relatively new. We're pushing data collection.
How does your committee interact with that data?
Well, we look at the data, we review it when we have a meeting with Scott and Chief Pignatelli and Larry, with Charles. We look at the data, we listen to Scott's presentation, and determinations are made as to whether some enforcement action has to be taken because of something. 75% of the cars on Sycamore Lane going 45 miles an hour. That doesn't happen, by the way, but we look at the data in that context. Fortunately, there have not been serious issues with regard to the speeding on side streets. Broadway is more of a problem in that regard. Although I do think, at least anecdotally, and we have to look at the latest data on this, but anecdotally, it seems as though speeding on Broadway is less of a problem than it used to be. Thanks to Scott in particular.
Is the data available for, can people see that data?
Yes.
Where does it reside?
I can send you the link for it. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I can send you the link for it. Scott can too, for that matter.
I mean, I think this points to, we've had some discussions too about, making the village website a little more user friendly and being able to, and I think it's all transparency, because as Arlene said, we do, I think, get bulk of comments from the community about my street, etc. You might see me on my street shaking my fist at people driving by too.
I know the feeling.
Yeah. So I think having access to more information could really help with that. And really grateful for that we have this committee and that we have people that are looking at this and, you know, joining all the different parts that need to be.
Just to be clear, if Scott looks at the data
Yeah.
and it said in terms of percentiles.
Yeah.
And he says, you know, what is it, the threshold might be 85%, I forgot. Anyway, 85% are below, or at or below the speed limit, he's gonna say there's really not an issue here.
Right.
Which doesn't mean you don't put a car out there occasionally, try to nail somebody. Coming down Harriman, Harriman has been a problem.
Why I'm on the committee.
Right.
Because shaking my fist out on Harriman wasn't
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
anything.
Yeah. So I think like having residents having other avenues other than shaking their fists at traffic
Yeah.
is a good thing.
Yeah.
But also like being able to say and point to like, listen, we are looking at this area already. You know, there's the study that's been done, and you know, if it meets a threshold, then that would mean different things. But you know, just kind of a transparency and like we're already looking at this.
Oh, yeah.
This is being, that you're being heard.
I do like the suggestion of trying to get more feedback from the community. What we did early in early years for this group, and I think John's suggestion will help. Now we have to consider whether we want something more formal by way of a survey that would cost something, but anyway.
I just had a conversation with somebody who told me something that made perfect sense. But the street by the post office, right, she was on, yeah. And she said people never stop at the stop sign, they go really fast, and it was like, okay. I hadn't thought about that, but it made sense, and while we were standing there talking, zooming past, and I was like, wow, it's really fast, but it, you know, sometimes a lot of the one-way streets, people just like really, and that's because people are going to the, you know, I know why they're doing it, right, like they're like going, rushing to the train. But I think getting that kind of information, say, we get a lot of this feedback too, and it's sort of a conversation then with the chief about where to deploy, like, you know, enforcement. Like, I think you just need enforcement at times. It's,
Yeah.
you know,
And by the way, one of the things we wanted Scott to do was to start giving tickets to Irvington residents. And I think he does that. Wasn't the practice in the past so much.
Yeah. Okay.
makes him
They're breaking the law, they're breaking the law.
makes him popular. If he's popular, he makes sergeants, and he's
Yeah.
good. He's still the best.
Goodwill to coast
He's
on.
terrific. So we took enough of your time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really should.
Okay. Announcements are next. It will come as no surprise to anybody that tomorrow is election day.
Oh.
It is?
Anybody who's got their eyes open on the streets. Let's see. And Veterans Day services will be Tuesday, November 11th at 10:45 a.m. at Plaza on Main Street. The Peter K. Oley Turkey Trot is on Sunday, November 23rd, 2 p.m. start at Dow's Lane. And our check over 25,000 is to those guys contracting for the Ardsley Avenue Drainage Project. From the capital fund, it's $27,325, and I guess there's a few others here. Hempstead Ford Lincoln Mercury for a sanitation truck. Capital fund withdrawal is $52,664.80. The Northeast Sweepers and Rentals for a Ravo R5 street sweeper from the capital fund is $304,875.21. I'll save any Halloween commentary for the end. Probably the only other thing worth announcing is that we will shortly be putting out some sort of an announcement on the Facilities Planning Committee BBB process in terms of, you know, first meeting and whatnot. And I think that BBB, our consultant, is working on some of the language for us. So, I guess we have no correspondence. So, public comment, anybody?
Harriman Road, please. Broadway is definitely a bigger problem, but
I live at Cedar Ridge. I think sometime over the last.
Sorry, you gotta give your name, even though we know who you are.
Hi, Zoe Hamilton Von Bauer. I wanted to just ask, sometime in the last year, someone stood up and requested that the village start, bring back a community service award that I don't remember the name of the
Adele
award.
Warnock.
I wondered if the board had ever discussed it privately or publicly since that person and whether that's being sort of yes.
It's on my list.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, because so it'll be published sort of what the parameters and, okay.
Yeah, and I think that, by the way, I mean, I'm not addressing what status is in terms of discussion, but I'm pretty sure that's on the website. And in terms of what the requirements are. Not that you should have to go and search through and find it. I'm sure one of us can find it for you, but it is posted there.
I couldn't remember the name of it.
I've been around long enough that I was there when they were giving them out.
Oh. How long ago was that they?
My first go around, I think, as mayor or trustee. So what, 14, 15 years ago, something like that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? The consent agenda is the minutes of the village board meeting from the regular meeting on October 20, 2025, appointment of personnel and Rec and Parks Department, and approval of 25, 26 budget transfers and modifications. Anyone have any questions on any of that? Okay, then I will make a motion to adopt the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Approval of submission for New York State Parks, Rec, and Historic Preservation Grant application. This is for $15,000 for the O'Hara Nature Center. I think it's sort of for education, forest health, and water quality. Do you want to, is any more details you want to add on that?
Sure, this was a grant that was awarded to the village by Mayor Gene Shimsky. I believe it was last year. And it's, as you indicated, it's in the amount of $15,000 meant to create programming to reinforce sustainability. So we identified through CJ Riley, the village's naturalist, some projects that educate people on areas around sustainability. It's going to be generally a speaker series type of program, and to also encourage people to visit O'Hara Nature Center and learn about all the important work that CJ is doing. The application materials that are back up to this agenda outline what kinds of topics are anticipated that we will be offering through this grant.
Got it.
1.5 or 5.0?
1.5.
Because they
This is guidelines for
50,000 right there, gotcha.
Yeah, I made that first mistake when I looked through it as well, but, okay. Yeah, the question is, does it say 1.5 anywhere in the resolution?
That's why I was confused.
Yeah, no, it's fair. Legislative initiative grant. Can I put in legislative initiative grant $15,000 in the first whereas clause, Charles? Any objection to that? So my motion reads, whereas the Village of Irvington has received a legislative initiative grant of $15,000 in the New York State budget, and whereas there are specific requirements and regulations governing the expenditure of these funds, now therefore the Board of Trustees of the Village of Irvington resolves the following. Administration of all funds under this grant will be in accordance with all terms and conditions contained in the guidelines for non-construction projects 50,000 and under, July 2025, provided by the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. That Charles Hessler, as village administrator of the Village of Irvington, is hereby authorized to sign legal documents on behalf of the Village of Irvington, and that such signature is acknowledged is acknowledgement of the acceptance by the Board of Trustees of compliance with all terms and conditions of the state of New York contract for grants, contract number T25 T904 to be executed for the grant. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Bookmarks here, so I gotta find the next one. which is going to be an intermunicipal agreement with Westchester County for the Stop DWI Patrol Data Master Project. I think it's costs us $8,400 to have. Actually, we are paying them, but we are performing the service of sort of an overtime patrol to help stop DWIs. So we're paying them in effect to share data. Okay. Anybody have any questions? So my motion is resolved to authorize the village administrator to execute an intermunicipal agreement with Westchester County for the Stop DWI Patrol Data Master Project, term of January 1, 2026 through December 31, 2030. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Small dollar amount. It's quite a long agreement. Let's see here. Anybody who finds a page number that would be relevant to me for the next one. Thank you. Made it. Okay. Appointment to the Irvington Woods Committee. Phil Whitney has graciously agreed to join the committee. He's very community oriented. He's a 43-year resident, 6 years on the school board, 2 on the IEF, and is also a board member of the Greater Irvington Land Trust and has in-depth familiarity with the Irvington Woods. So if there are no objections, my resolution is resolved to appoint the following to the Irvington Woods Committee with a term to expire December 2025. Phil Whitney is a member. And I will point out that the December 2025 is just so that he matches up with the next organizational meeting. And he'll be with many other members of various committees. Do I have a second?
Second.
So don't quit on me now. All in favor?
Aye.
Getting near the end. Next is approval of the snow and ice supplemental agreement number 2 with the New York State Department of Transportation. Basically, it's for Broadway, and in this instance, the state is going to pay the village to do the cleanup of snow and ice on Broadway. If there's no questions, my motion is, whereas the Village of Irvington and the New York State Department of Transportation have entered into an agreement providing for the village's removal of snow and ice from North and South Broadway. Now therefore be it resolved to approve the snow and ice supplemental agreement number 2 for the 2025-26 season between the Village of Irvington and the New York State Department of Transportation, and to authorize the village administrator to execute said agreement. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
And this actually came into play, on the whole committee with us when we spoke to DOT about the things, some of the things they want to do, because we have the responsibility.
Oh, right.
We have to make sure that
you could manage it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Wow. Okay. Next up are reports of board standing committees and officers.
The Board of Ed school update is just on November 4th at 7:30. It's going to be some meeting. I think most people know in the board that the Welcome Irvington community is going to be presenting to us with the next session. They're going to be talking about this new committee that's going to be welcoming new residents. They have a few different initiatives that they're proposing to us. One of the things I wanted to follow up with is actually with Charles of the website. We had spoken a few weeks ago about we were meeting about revamping the website and possibly having some space for the new members.
Yes, that's correct. So the villages do, as a part of our standard website domain agreement, for a renewal through Civic Plus, who's our domain provider. So there's going to be a space where I think it would be useful to advertise information directly to benefit new residents, but obviously old residents, people might have forgotten. It's always a good resource for even staff to know where to go. So I think there's value in doing that. And this is the time where we're looking at how best to do it.
Great. I'd love to follow up with you specifics about timeframes. We don't have to talk about it at this moment.
Well, I mean, I can basically just indicate that Karen, my assistant, and I just had the kickoff for the website revamp last week, where we met with design teams to lay out the timeline for that project. the work that Civic Plus is doing is not going to be creating new content or even changing how the current content on our website is laid out, but it's more of a superficial facelift. Ultimately, once that work is starting to conclude, is when I'll be looking to find out ways to streamline how our information is presented and then add new material. But I can provide a more concrete timeline for that in my next update.
It would be helpful, I think, because they're trying to plan for how to promote themselves, and having a website like home base would be very helpful for them. So like if it's something that's going to be like in the distant future, they probably need to come up with some intermediary.
Sure. I mean, there's no reason why we couldn't add something now if it looks like this process is taking a long time, and obviously anything we add now will be revamped with everything else. So it'll just be put onto the new layout.
Okay. I don't have any issue with that.
Okay.
That would be great. I did want to follow up, and maybe this is for our next week's session, with the letter from Adam Stein with the parking situation. I think we had a conversation about what to do, and I feel like we inquired with the police department, and I think we had a better conversation about it. So I just want to put that on the discussion for next week.
Okay with that, if the work session.
Sure, we can talk about that. You talk about that on the 12th work session?
Yep.
Like what days to?
Yeah, exactly. I think
suspend
I feel like we made it like
parking.
80% of the way through the conversation. I think we just finalized.
If you think there is data that we haven't gotten and we need to get, send an email as soon as you can. And
Sure, if there's anything like
chase
that.
it down, because otherwise, I mean, we'll.
Nothing that I haven't emailed about.
Okay,
So.
all right.
Actually, similarly, I'd love to bring up at the pool meeting with the Mercy University is going to be it's finalized for the 12th, which is great. But I'd like to get some feedback maybe next week as well, just on like what I'm actually asking for. So I have ideas, but I like hear everyone else's thoughts before I start getting into like a negotiation with them. It could be brief. It could be like
No, that's, I'm not concerned about that. It was, our next meeting is on the 12th, yes, our work session?
December 12th.
Oh, December 12th, got it, okay.
December 12th.
Yes,
We got
no
time.
problem. So what you would like is for our next work session to have a little bit of time to have that
Just a
conversation.
few minutes. Yeah, I have a couple suggestions, and I'd actually like feedback on like best. Because I don't think exactly the way we did it the first time is the way to do it.
No
I
problem.
think we underutilized the pool.
And if there's any aspect of this that that you think is a negotiating point that you don't want, publicize the contractual point is what I'm
Yes.
referring to. We could have a session with council just to have a conversation about it. So you need to
Okay.
think, maybe there's none of that in what you contemplate.
Nothing
You
at the
just want our
moment, but like
feedback?
I will think along those
That's
lines.
fine, okay.
And the second list, I met with one of our historic committees, the Irvington 250 group, that has been meeting over the past year. And they had a proposal for an idea that they'd love the board to think about. So I just wanted to get that out there in the public, and something that we can start to think about. And obviously things will be changing at some point soon. But they're proposing to celebrate the Irvington Day. Apparently, there's a funny little moment of history that most people don't know is that Irvington was the capital of New York for a day. August 31st, there was this moment where the safety came through here, and it was like they did their business in Hotel Tavern, and so they wanted to commemorate that date and also do a nice event. So the committee has been having some different options, and one of them is something that's been going around the area. Actually, there's a few different these are doing a tavern night, where they recreate a historic tavern. Maybe even just a tent, ideally maybe close to a Hotel Tavern. And they're looking for corporate sponsors. They're trying to find ways to not make it events, but also bring in some marine actors. But there obviously be like little drinks, and my wife is very excited about doing colonial music and dancing, which I think would be a blast. So
August 31st.
August 31st, because that's the actual. No, it would be the 30th, because I think the 31st would be the official date. Is when we were the capital. 30th is a Sunday, so it is.
Tankards avail.
Exactly. So I'm going to put it out there. It was a very popular idea in the committee, and I had a feeling that it would be a popular idea if I would. But I wanted to put it out there is it's the universe. And last, I think this is probably on everyone else. Let's talk a little bit about that. Just to debrief the Halloween traffic. So we don't have to do this now, but I think it's worth talking through. I think it was a wonderful experience, but I think there's definitely like tweaks. So I'm happy to talk about this now, or if it's on anyone else.
The truth is, and I don't know if Mitch has the same problem, but I was mostly stationary because I was going to be playing in a band.
Sure.
So I can't speak to traffic issues. I can only listen. From my perspective and what I heard from people, well,
Largely, I think it did.
but if there are specific concerns, I don't know if this is a good, is it a lengthy discussion, you think, or something that we should put on the work session, or?
Longer of the work session. I mean, one of the brief things is just there was some concerns about the length of time, like maybe shortening it. It did seem. I did walk around periodically. I tried to get away when I could, when I didn't have throngs of children coming at me. And earlier on, it was mobbed on Main Street. It was great. And then I think somewhere, I'm not exactly sure the timing. We want to talk to the police, but like somewhere between like 8:30 to 9:30, somewhere in there, it like became a ghost town on Main Street, but it was closed and the people couldn't leave.
I think that, and I'm definitely speaking from personal experience, because we finished, say, 8:15 to 8:30, and we were the third band on Main Street. Question is whether, I think there were bands that went on later on some of the side streets.
On the side
So
streets.
it's real, I mean, we should almost be having a conversation with the chief.
It is. I agree.
Okay,
I agree.
fine. I mean, you may want to send an email to the board and to Charles, just suggesting that maybe for the work session, the chief or somebody with an understanding of the traffic implications on Halloween.
I would love to hear what they saw.
Yeah, exactly.
What's interesting is the Main Street School is outside of the zone, so you could go in, because I hope people know you didn't need me, but Stacy, because I had to collect the lights and everything. So I left after your set about maybe half hour after I was done cleaning. Is that about right? And Main Street parking lot was still absolutely packed. It wasn't like, oh, I'm the last one and I'm going out. It was like I had to go the wrong way out because there was no way to get to the other side because people parked and blocked it.
And I just, after I loaded my truck, I left it there, and I still have the shaving cream on it to prove that. And went out to dinner in the village, and then picked it up at at 10 o'clock when I knew I could move it.
But it's definitely true. There were fewer kids. By the time your set was done, the kids had large.
But it was mostly adults.
I went. I went to, I think, the last show at 9:30, and it was Edgar Street was packed.
Yeah.
But I didn't see a child around, and there was no one on the sidewalk on the street at that point. I feel like the adults might be able to manage being on the sidewalk.
So you may maybe we could pose to the chief just what they thought about the back end hours, whether they thought it could be shortened a little bit or not, and maybe we can press the band schedule.
So we get more and more bands all the time.
So,
All
right.
No, I think look, it's the first time we did it, so it's gonna be,
Yeah.
There's always going to be things to tweak. I think it's just worth like debriefing.
Yeah, that's fine.
It was a magical moment. Like when somebody was, you gotta go see it. I had to like step away from the candy. I got a friend to watch it. And I like walked out. It was joyful. Everyone was just having a great time. No one was worried about their kids getting run over. There was like a DJ over at the bar meet Scott place. It was amazing. It was
Honestly, sitting behind the drums and looking out at Main Street, up and down a block, I was surprised because I figured going on at 7, everybody's going to bolt after you guys were done, and it was still pretty busy.
Yeah,
which was nice to see.
Yeah, it was nice.
It was nice to see the kids. So in the past years, you'd see the kids go by, and there'd be a little bit of going to the street,
all the time.
And this year it was just like joyous running amok. You know what I mean? Like you'd see kids running by and everything. You'd be like, oh, good, because nothing's gonna hit them.
Yeah, no, I think it really succeeded. What we hoped for. So.
Okay.
Since we're talking about it, we should really thank the police did an amazing job.
Oh yeah,
everybody,
and just really on top of everything, and I know we brought in reinforcements from the county and everything. I saw.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw the sheriffs.
Yeah, but I mean, it just everything ran so well, and I was really impressed.
No,
So thank
all
you
of
all.
our.
I would also obviously DPW and the fire
Oh, of
department.
course, yeah.
Actually, the fire department had to take a call. Excuse me, in the middle of this long transformer on Sunnyside.
Yeah, right.
And I
complex, some of the buildings lost.
and I thank the folks who organized the bands too. I guess it's Doug McClure and maybe John Malone,
That's the,
principal guy. Yeah, which is great. Anyway,
Yeah.
Well, speaking of DPW, I wanted to extra shout them out because I went down to Main Street too, because I wanted to see what it was looking like. And I, earlier in the day, saw Todd literally running around and placing cones and like
Oh.
making sure cars were out. And so,
Good, yeah.
I wanted to make sure that the efforts of that department were really shouted out as well because they did an amazing job and it would not happen without them.
So much without like any credit at all.
They're,
Like, God bless
they
them.
are the invisible force of this town that you would absolutely notice if they stopped doing their job. So speaking of their jobs, they were doing various repairs and there's a lot of public contact with DPW as well. So I don't know if everyone knows that, but Todd spends a lot of his time and is very responsive to the community. So some repairs on different streets and then he also provided an update on the Ardsley Avenue West Drainage Project. So 630 feet of pipe installed, 4 manholes, 7 catch basins. So that's DPW. Oh, and we have a while to plan it, but May is there's like a recognition in May of DPW sanitation workers, which we should recognize as a village when it comes up. And I'll work on that for starting for next year. For water, reading the meters and service line, also assisting DPW with videotaping storm drain pipe, water tapped, various constructions, unclogging a sewer that was undocumented at a certain place, removing an abandoned fire hydrant. So again, I think also water department, pretty invisible, but essential to town. For the Irvington Green Team, November 5th, which is Wednesday night, another of their monthly talks. As always, down at the library, and there is food. The main focus of this meeting will be collaboration with other environmental committees in river towns, examining what they are doing. And so it's a good place to kind of figure out what we're doing as a whole, not just in Irvington, but as a river towns community in terms of green adaptation. Also wanted to announce the Bulldogs Bag the Bench initiative. So if you have a ton of, like, if you get an Amazon mailer or the bag that your bread might come in, the Green Team is collecting that at various locations, Village Hall, Farmers Market, library, maybe. But the goal is to collect 1,000 pounds of that plastic, and then the village will get a Trex bench. So when you take that stuff to your grocery store, it goes to
contribute.
Yeah.
Because we're saving those all the time.
Yeah, so it goes to a company that makes the plastic into those like permanent trucks, like for decks and things like that. So Irvington has a chance to win a bench of our own if we can collect 1,000 pounds. When I went to the farmers market this weekend, actually then we're up to 25 pounds, so we need to step it up. And then just encouraging folks that if you do have pumpkins that you had for Halloween, that those can be food scrapped. The whole thing can be taken to the farmers market or to the toters. Okay. And then fire department. So for October, as of October 23rd, it had 19 calls for the month and 326 calls year to date. They were thanking everyone that helped with the inspection, and they had a lot of members of the fire department who helped ahead of the inspection with all of like the cleanup and making sure the trucks looked, perfect. And let's see, they have trainings that are coming up in November. They have trainings every month. And then also one of the facilities planning co-chairs, Mike Aziz, and I were able to meet with the fire chief to go over the facilities plan and to make sure that they were receiving all of the updated communications from that committee and where we are in the next steps of that process.
While you're thinking of it, if you can send me the official description of the plastic bag collection, I can throw that in the mayor's letter.
Yeah,
I
will definitely do so.
That's a great one. Mitch?
The library had the Friends of the Library had the book sale last weekend. I'm going to be at the library board meeting before our second full meeting. Hopefully get more details about how that went. And the theater, it's interesting because on one front, we are, Charles and I and Katie and one of the co-chairs of the theater commission are interviewing candidates for the theater manager position this week and the beginning of next week. So we're moving towards a new theater manager, which is exciting and important. So we can make sure that that's going to be really good that we're doing that, so we get things going, especially because the theater is still going, right? There's still events going on. And I believe this weekend, I think coming up is they have a former SNL member who's doing a show. And I know the theater is really busy in December with rentals and other shows and everything. So I just wanted everyone to know that Charles has really stepped up because of the lack of a theater manager. And I don't think when he applied for the job here, he was thinking that he was going to be running a 123-year-old theater, but he's doing an amazing job. So thank you for jumping in.
We all wear many hats.
That's not one you thought you were going to wear. So thank you. Just thank you. Hopefully by the time that we next meetings report, hopefully we may have even narrowed down to who so that would be really exciting. So and that's all I got. Oh, and I already said.
So from Zoe and the Woods Committee, there was the Greater Irvington Land Trust, they had a grant, right? That was through a grant, and the wetland meadow was planted. That was this weekend. Okay, very long days. About 25 to 30 people went to plant. I was there. It was really fun. People should do those plantings. It's actually lots of fun. It's like being out in the woods, which they've done an amazing job of clearing those wetlands. And if people haven't been to the woods, they should go because it's pretty amazing up there now. And also they're working on a grant application also to expand the boardwalk that from the wetland island to meet up with the trails. I think David, right? You said you worked on those boardwalks with Eagle Scouts and Cub Scouts, and Girl Scouts. So really exciting, fun work being done in the woods. And then from our pack, from Maureen, not from our pack, sorry, from Maureen, from Parks and Rec, the Halloween events were well attended. Thank you to the Irvington Fire Company for sponsoring the parade, and the Irvington Girl Scouts providing treat packs at the window painting event. Registration is open for holiday-themed LEGO workshops for kindergarten through second grade. Graders, themes include Thanksgiving, Hanukkah, Polar Express, and the Grinch. You can check out irvingtonny.gov/recreation for details. Online registration is open for the annual Peter K. Oley Turkey Trot, Sunday, November 23rd. Registration closes on Friday, November 21st at 5. And then number distribution will be held 12:15 p.m. between 12:15 p.m. and 1:45 p.m. on the day of the event. Note, there won't be any day of registration. The race begins at 2 o'clock. Same thing. Check out at irvingtonny.gov/recreation for more details. The village proclaimed Saturday, November 1st as Ruth Goldsmith Day, and Mayor Siegel presented a framed proclamation. The pavilion and plaque and signage. I guess they put up a pavilion plaque and signage, and the outdoor furniture was set up. This was a gift from the Goldsmith family, so we thank them for that generous donation. And then Veterans Day, you already announced.
Thank you. Village Administrator's report.
Sure, I only have two items tonight. Thank you, Mayor and Board. On the Matheson Park stage construction, concrete site and drainage work are approximately 90% complete, while electrical work is about 80% complete. Next steps including installing railings on the stage, ramp, steps, and coordinating with Con Edison to energize a new pole, and removing the old pole while completing remaining electrical work and energizing bathroom shed and light pole are still to come. The final punch list of items will include repairing grass and roadways at the crossings, installing the base of the restroom utilities, and conducting additional review. The work is projected to be completed. The major work is projected to be completed this month in November, with the punch list items being ironed out in December. As a reminder, the total project cost for this project is $1,800,000, with expenses to date, including encumbrances, totaling $1,405,906.37. As a reminder, this project financing includes a $500,000 grant from a New York State Parks grant. However, this funds have not been transferred yet. As a reminder, that all non-essential village offices are closed on Tuesday, November 11th, in recognition of Veterans Day.
Thank you. Village Clerk Treasurer's report.
I have no report this week.
Treasurer. One more chance for public comment. Nope. Okay. Then although it's with council or just.
No, I don't.
Okay, then I will make a motion to go to executive session before we adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I gotta take a 2-minute.